Alright everyone, this is Snoo and I'm finally here to give you the build showcased for a 1 Lightning Strike Magic Find Ghost Raider. It just keeps getting stranger, the names of these builds. There it is, you can see it. That's no MTX, looks pretty badass I think for a non-MTX character. Many of you are probably at least a little bit curious about what the heck this even is. Why it's a build in the first place, why I chose to do it, how I came about it. Some of you may genuinely be wanting to know more about how the build functions, the specific gear, how to put it together, the PoE, how all of the nuts and bolts of the build come together, and there's some interesting stuff there. And then there are a select few of you who have been quite vocal, quite adamant about me making a build guide or some kind of guide or showcase or something on this character. Snoo, when are you going to make the Lightning Strike video? We got to see the video. Well, here it is. Finally getting around to it. And I got a reason. I got a pretty good reason for not having made the video up till now. I thought about doing some kind of League Start variation of this, but I mean, League Start had already gone by, and I was progressing the gear kind of quickly, very quickly reached like a 20-30 divine budget in the build. And I just honestly just didn't feel that comfortable trying to guide people on the build that because I wasn't really sure how it would play at the lower end gear levels, and I honestly a little bit sketchy about the build in general because it did have some survivability issues, did have some clear issues, so I figured things out. It was quite the project to work through, making Lightning Strike, which was a skill gem that was nerfed very heavily a couple years ago, transforming that into Magic Find, which is something that is basically never done, using a weapon archetype that isn't used anymore for Lightning Strike. And then, just tying that all together into a well-functioned high-performing build. It wasn't really something I had a great deal of confidence about, but it has turned out pretty well enough. I think most of you have seen in recent footage on my videos that it's worthy of a video. So we're going to showcase it, and I have now acquired my Mage Blood, which means I'm about to really ramp up the gear threshold of this build until I switch over to a Tornado Shot build. Some kind of elemental tornado shot build, but I still need a bow and quiver and stuff, so I'm basically right around the corner of putting a Mage Blood on this build, and I want to get the video out while the budget is still within range, at least, of a lot of people and those that select minority of people who really want to replicate what this is. So, in my opinion, the most interesting part of this video is going to be the beginning, which features the kind of why of the build. There's definitely a cool story there, and then we'll get into the map showcase. I got a map showcase like I usually do. Talk a little bit about that. The gear, skill gems, the passives, and the PoE, and we'll call it a wrap when that's all said and done. All right, so let's get into it. We are going to start with what the heck this even is. Core items and tech around the build revolve around this 4-link, which I carried over from Explosive Concoction. So I League started with Explosive Concoction, Poisonous Concoction, switched it Act 6, and I already made build, showcase, everything about that. That was said and done. I got rumors that I needed to be really testing Magic Find because this whole ghosting thing is real in the group meta. I wanted to test it solo, so I had to very quickly figure out how to put a character together from Explosive Concoction, one that would be viable for at least a hybrid Magic Find build. And I fell in love with this tech that I also made a video for, which featured Vaal, Smite, and Innervate together, just giving an enormous amount of added player power to the extent of like 2 separate Wrath auras worth of flat lightning damage, temporarily of course, but with well-timed gameplay you could basically keep it up at least theoretically 100% of the time. And it is embedded into shield charge, which I was using momentum for, but I can actually make double use of fast attack support, and since Fortify is a gift to melee this league through the tattoo system, I think probably the strongest tattoo, perhaps the strongest tattoo, is the global Fortify for melee. That's insanely good. It put melee on the map, especially for what I wanted to do with ghosting, and I needed to be extra tanky for melee anyway. So I needed to make a character that was obviously could take advantage of flat lightning damage. It needed to you know, be able to have some good clear, have halfway decent single target. In order to use Vaal smite, here's a major stipulation: I couldn't use a claw or a dagger. See, I have to use a sword, axe, mace, scepter, staff, or unarmed. In the case, of course, concoction builds. So I got to looking on PoE Ninja. Spent a great deal of time over there. I looked at Venom Gyre. Well, that's claws. Otherwise, but it looked pretty good. Frostblades. Yeah, daggers, and still look not too bad. KB, wand. All right, but those were some decent candidates that could at least make use of this. You know, they used a shield, or at least could use shield charge and could use smite and things like that. If not for the weapon archetype being an issue. So I landed on some variation of lightning strike, because it looked like lightning strike would tie into this pretty well, and I like lightning arrow, the melee variation of lightning arrow. You know, sounds kind of cool. It's quasi projectile based. Oh yeah, also I needed it to be a projectile build because I wanted to keep playing my ranger, so I kind of needed it to be melee and projectile hybrid. There's not that many skill gems mentioned. The aforementioned gems fall under that category, but basically what I went for was raider with, instead of a claw, using a sword, and instead of being a regular build, you know, with like, you know, +1 max frenzy stacking and everything, let's go magic find. See if we can make that work on a nerfed skill. Well, there was one major upside to doing this, and that the gear, this very, very, very specific, highly specialized gear that I needed, was actually quite cheap, at least before it was popularized at all. Vessel, Victor from Explosive Concoction, and Impulsa could be very expensive items. We're not that expensive. They're part of the core build and core things as well. So basically, this is how I fixed the explode issues, or the clear, and then single target actually kind of fixed from a massive amount of flat lightning damage added there. And a viewer informed me of a much better option for this attack mastery. Instead of going 5% increased attack speed per enemy in close range, which I was using for concoctions, non-Vaal strike skills target and one additional nearby enemy actually does work for single target, apparently, at least a certain range. So, I do feel it, I do notice it. Takes a while getting used to that, but it worked out pretty well. So that's kind of the genesis of the build, how I came about it, and that's some of the core tech related to the build. Let me do a map for you guys. And I am, I suppose, giving you a sneak peek of content to come. I'm working on Harbinger right now. All in Harbinger ghosting, essentially. Still, ironically, about the same tree I was using on the cemetery build, but yeah, not you doing Enraged Strongbox. I will submit the atlas to you in the description of the video. The compasses are a little odd, like this one, and oh yeah, for fun and to make the mapping experience more enjoyable, Vaal Lightning, Vaal Smite, and Vaal Haste. I would like to have them all three and work well, so this makes that work out pretty well. I kind of don't even need the section, not even sure what to put there. And then magic pack size, I don't really feel like doing beyond. Beyond might be a good idea, but anyway, let's do a map. I'll kind of show you. Now, you've seen me doing this content already, so there's not a whole lot new to show you here, unless there's somebody who's watching this now hasn't seen any of my other content otherwise. So I gotta try not to kill stuff. So here's the part that would be tricky, with like if I was playing a 100 million DPS tornado shot build, how would I even do this without killing stuff right and left? I use my Vaal Smite, I load up a bunch of single target, and I go in here and I press Vaal Lightning Strike twice and just blitz the boss, except it actually doesn't work very well against this boss type. Oh, I got the 10% proc with spawning a bunch of ghosts in here, which is kind of funny. You'll notice, you might be surprised at why are the ghosts still alive? Aren't I spraying projectiles literally everywhere, killing everything, except the ghosts seem to not die? Well, that's because they have a damage reduction multiplier that sort of saves this strategy from being non-functional. It actually works. And I want to take those ghost mobs, I want to apply them to Harbingers specifically, if I can. And this should be easy to kind of target the Harbingers with the touch debuff. I forgot to mention Fairgrave's Tricorn. I am wearing that as a helmet right now. That is, I suppose that is kind of core tech to the build. It's not actually necessary, but it is something I'm using. Getting a lot of really good altars. It's still very important to clear the altars. I mean, I wouldn't want to just kill everything ghosted. right away. You know, I want to actually get some good altars going on here before I start killing everything. But here I'm ghosting a bunch of stuff right now. I got almost 100% chance to dupe uniques, and I'm actually targeting uniques right here, so that's kind of nice. Okay, I just keep running through these. I was hoping for more King Harbingers, but... Oh, we got some more ghosts. Okay, there's at least one more ghost alive. Right. Oh, there's another one here. I got a lot of extra ghost power. I guess I'll use it there. Maybe right here. Got another ghost. Not that hard when you move really fast. So I don't know if this is going to be a good strategy or not. I mean, on paper it sounds like it'll be good. As long as you have to have a lot of defense. See, I don't know how this is going to play on a bow build. Might not work out very well. It seems pretty easy on this character now. I've been telling people I have about a 50 divine budget on this character, but we'll get into the gear. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to specify because, you know, the gear is very cheap for how well it's rolled because it's unpopular. But if I push this build out there, it becomes popular. The gear is much more expensive suddenly. And I have a lot of like double corrupted items that are extra expensive. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. Kind of hard to actually pinpoint the quality of the gear. Well, I mean, I think I did a pretty good job ghosting stuff on the map. I'm still kind of getting the hang of this. Did I even... I didn't even spawn a single King Harbinger. That's actually very unlucky. Oh, there's another ghost. And I saw him too late. I mean, I can't ghost a rare mob, but I'll try to kill this guy here. Should have had a little more player power there. Oh, Vaal smite off. Okay. Maybe a little bit of extra power, and suddenly my damage goes ways up. I was in the good range for the nearby extra target hit too there. So you actually got to see my damage ramp up like crazy between Vaal smite, innervate, and actually positioning myself right. Oh, I was still alive there. Okay, we're gonna save time, and you know there wasn't really much to pick up, but I may come back and loot the rest of that in a minute. I want to talk to you about the gear now. Let's start with the weapon, which was changed most recently. I did run a triple T1 physical rolled fancy foil, which is not the right base, so it was only like 6 divines, which is crazy cheap, but I mean, it was the wrong base. Then I discovered Paradoxica. I wish somebody would have told me, and it was a much cheaper alternative. It's actually way stronger and insanely scales crazy with Vaal smite and innervate, because anything that increases flat damage just is compounded by the everything double damage. So that was wild. I can't wait to show you that in the PoB. I wish I was running Wrath, but I don't really have room for it. So Paradoxica was really strong here, and it cost me about like 12 divines or 15 divines, something like that. I can't even remember. I ended up divining this actually as well, so I spent a bit more currency on it. But anyway, it's it's perfect roll attack speed, and physical damage is very high. You don't need to run like bleed or poison. You could just run, or I mean, you could run bleed or poison, and it would be worth less instead of blind. You could run the blood rage level 1, it would be worth less instead of dex intelligence. So it's actually very easy to get a almost equivalent but much cheaper version of that. The shield, on the other hand, would be very hard to get. I don't think there's any way you're going to copy this shield. This is a one-of-a-kind shield. In some alternate universe somewhere, this shield is worth a mirror, but it's not worth anything here because nobody wants this shield. I mean, who would even use this shield? Who is this shield for, Well, I guess it's for a raider to cap their element avoidance who is actually using berserk gloves. That's basically nobody. And then with attack speed and prioritizing evasion and life. Not very many people fit the bill for this kind of shield, but holy cow, 2,162 evasion. That's incredible, and I got extra usage out of that from this little bad boy right here. That's nice. Real nice. So I filtered through a lot of different shields. I had all kinds of shields. I had shields that were basically just as good as this, except maybe not the evasion and not attack speed, but maybe all res or block. I had one that had block chance. It was actually easy to get shields that were like this, just not quite this good. This was the best one that I had. But anyway, at any rate, this is obviously just a product of ROG. You know, this is clearly a ROG item that somebody made, and there's a limited supply of things like this in the early league, and the person was happy to give it to me for 1 divine. I paid 1 divine for this shield, I think, if I remember correctly. The helmet is Fairgrave's Tricorn, and it comes with a bunch of added damage and movement speed and attack speed when you're ghosting. So since I'm literally just doing ghosting stuff, I wanted to use this helmet. Very cheap helmet, although with the enchant and corruption combo, it's not cheap anymore. It's like 15 divines. However, the enchantment doesn't really help that much, and the enchantment without the corruption is still pretty cheap. And that's not a bad idea, because you could just get sovereignty instead of this, or you could spend 3 passive points and get the mana reservation notable here. You just need it in one of 3 places, or I suppose you could load up on tattoos even as a 4th option. I want the most expensive option and just got it done right here. So Hardy with the Bisco's collar helps with the rage regen. I got almost 7 rage per second, I think, and that really helps with that. I like having closer to like 7, 8, 9 rage per second. It just feels a lot better. Bisco's collar is like a nothing item, costs nothing. Even this well rolled costs almost nothing, but it's extremely good for ghosting, because the touched mechanic, and you're gonna have to watch some of my other videos if you don't know what I'm talking about with ghosting or whatever. I mean, that's all my content's been about for the past couple weeks, but that only applies to normal and magic mobs. And right now, divination card farming's insane, because everybody's spending time in league mechanics like Sanctum and the new league mechanic, but nobody's spending time, dropping Mage Bloods on the ground. So, or farming apothecary cards. So it's a great time to farm apothecary cards. And if you're touching monsters and loading them up with increased quant multipliers, normal regular monsters that usually don't count for anything suddenly count for a lot. And if you have a 50% increased quant as a player side increased quantity, that's effing nuts. And I think it is contributing greatly to just a massive uptick in card drops in general. I got a lot of cards out of the last cemetery farm I did, that's for sure. A little too early to tell for sure, but theoretically it definitely should be very impactful. We also have a couple of Ventors that are identical, basically. Fire Res is easy to come by because it's on the gloves and the boots. However, Cold Res is on the belt and Lightning Res on the helmet. So Lightning and Cold kind of need help the most, and I'm using Eater of Worlds Altar, so I get slapped with minus 40 to 50 Lightning and Cold Res. Really want to be way over cap for these, more than I am, but I can only do so much for this, and yeah, that's actually another reason why I'm running this notable for that. But, I did what I could, kind of deprioritized rarity. These Ventors I bought very early. It was around 6, 7 divines each. Now probably around 12 divines or so for this currently. However, it could be way, 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 way cheaper if all I did was, say, drop the quantity from perfect down to like 7 or 8. Then they'd be worth, heck, I don't even know if they'd sell. If it dropped the quantity down to like 7, it probably wouldn't even sell. It'd be worth almost nothing, because that's how, Magic Find gear works, basically. It's either perfect or it's not. And then the gold worms are a perfect quant here. And an S tier corruption, the best corruption, 10% increased movement speed, makes these worth 10 divines, basically. But without the corruption, totally not mandatory. They're nothing, not even a divine. Calm Spear, similar story. This corruption's crazy. The max frenzy charge, I think it's 5 divines minimum. Nobody cares about duration support though, but it works really nice for me because I get Innervate and Smite. And AoE gems only counts for Smite. Aura gems only counts for Smite, but duration gems counts for both, so I get the upper tier, doubling up the level on both of the gems. Massive increasement to flat lightning damage. Really nice, this double corruption for these gloves. Don't expect to replicate it. Just focus on the duration. Just try to get the duration one. That's better to get if you're trying to do this build. Impulsa we already talked about with Vessel Vinctor. Impulsa was the answer to the clear issue. I did try Greed's Embrace and Oriath's End. It works, but it's pretty inferior. I didn't like it very much, so I actually went back to Impulsa. And it's just so much more damage anyway than Greed's, and movement speed, by the way. But I would like to run Greed's Embrace. I just couldn't settle for it. Bisco's is just there because I didn't have Mage Blood. Well, I mean, I have one now, but didn't for a long time, so there it is. Rampage actually gets in the way of ghosting a little bit, so kind of happy to get rid of it, honestly. The flasks are just my normal setup. Divination Distillate, Quicksilver, Gold Flask, Quicksilver, Silver Flask for Onslaught, and then Reduction of Curse is really nice. The Vessel Vinctor is highly specific to this build, or Explosive Concoction. I will be replacing it with Progenesis when I switch to Tornado Shot, and that will be a 3-flask setup. Mage Blood, that will work very nice. Now, let's move on to the gems. I have a terrific 6-link here. Lightning Strike got a buff, at least indirectly this league, with Anomalous Returning Projectile support. Very nice here. And Volatility support, super good for lightning damage. The low bottom end, the high top end, very good. In fact, I think it's second best damage compared to Trinity support for this build. Especially strong with the Vaal, Smite, and Innervate, I believe. I think they connect in that way. The critical damage support's pretty high, and the multi-strike is not everybody's flavor. It does make you kind of stand still for a split second, but it does add tremendous to the single target damage, which is one of this build's, at this point, the build's kind of only real weakness is single target damage. So I don't know. I like the 6-link. I like it a lot. It's fun. Got a couple new gems and feels really good. There are some alternatives choices here, but you know, I think it's good. Then we have the 4-link that I already mentioned about Shield Charge, Vaal Smite, Faster Attacks, and Innervate. Don't need to talk about that again. We have a life side reservation going on here with an extra gem like Blood Rage to help drive down Divination Distillate. We got Precision and Vitality. Covers me for the hit. Really just to right about hit cap with this. And then Arrogant Support. You know, it gives me a lot of breathing room. A lot of breathing room right there. And I still get some recovery, by the way, through this mastery. It's really nice. A viewer told me about this a week ago. Super feel-good mastery. You get the life recovery even when you're running Calm Spirit. Take this one to the bank. If you didn't know about this, you're trying to run Blood Rage and Calm Spirit together, you need this mastery. This is like really, really impactful. I don't think I could live without it now. Never die again in the map after trying to loot after killing everything. Okay, we got Haste, Grace, and Petrified Blood, which, you know, will require some extra reservation efficiency somewhere. I'm getting it in my helmet. Astral Projector is just an extra, or Ancestral Protector. I don't know what I said that. Ancestral Protector increases the melee attack speed a lot. The other Ancestral Totem increases melee damage, and I would use that with multiple totems setup. I just didn't have room for it because I got better tech in mind. I don't need it. Okay, then we got Mark on Hit and Assassin's Mark. I thought Sniper's Mark was the play, but apparently Assassin's Mark is. It pays to look at PoE Ninja profiles of other people running Lightning Strike and realize that, oh, Assassin's Mark is like better. Was able to drop Storm Rider out of the cluster setup and get a superior cluster for that as well. Berserk, a big part of the build, of course, on left click. And then we have Paradoxica is connected with cast from damage taken, Immortal Call, and increased duration. I wouldn't normally run this, except that I do have endurance charges in the build, thanks to Enduring Composure on a Megalomaniac, which is very, very good defensive layer here. The combination of those two things, very good. So that's it for the gems. Let's go to the passives. I suppose before I forget, we should start with the Ascendancy, Quartz Infusion, of course. Avatar of the Veil, and you know, we're getting their element immunity through that, through this wheel, and then through the shield. 100% chance to avoid elemental ailments. Getting some nice exposure too, and some spell suppression. Very easy to cap here without Mage Bane or anything. Avatar of the Slaughter is really good for what I want to do, because it really gives me the green light to double up on Inspired Learnings. So I have very nice Inspired Learning setups here, and I feel really good about the choice of actually using the exact notables I'm using. I feel like I would take them whether I was using Inspired Learning or not. So that feels really nice to have it, and did help me decide in my decision to roll Lightning Strike Raider specifically. Felt really good. Don't really need Way of the Poacher, but I mean, because I'm running Blood Rage. But anyways, to get over to Avatar of the Slaughter, which, you know, everybody takes that. So I got, you know, extra frenzy charges here, there. I guess I got 4 extra frenzy charges in total. So 7 frenzy charges. Not too shabby. Okay, and we got, of course, the charisma wheel and all that. Some reservation efficiency for life side. I suppose I don't really need this. I could maybe change this to auras have increased effect on you, which would improve Vaal smite even, by the way. I might change it. Or increase damage for each aura or herald effect. Actually, I should... Yeah. Wow. This is actually going to be better. It's going to be a lot more damage. Wow, real-time change. What do you know? Well, it pays to go over your build every once in a while. Took all 5 major life sides here with Heart of the Oak, Thick Skin, Herbalism, Circle of Life, and Revenge of the Hunted. Not relying on the full life for spell suppress immunity there. So all of the extra life, 3.5k life. Pretty nice. And let's see, we got precision, acuity, all that working together, getting myself a Capto. We got a little bit of leech. That's nice. Some life on hit. Some even more life on hit with Circle of Life, giving a lot of life on hit. And Recoup works really good with Petrified Blood. That is a nice setup. 4 power charges going on here. A Tattoo that gives me Global Fortify. Very nice for all melee builds this league. A huge amount of damage increase here. And I would take Primeval Force if I could afford it. Or Lethality would be good. But kind of, you know, starving on points a bit here. And I needed to fix... it wasn't enough with the Tattoo system. I actually did need to get this right here. Utmost Swiftness, because Paradoxica does have pretty steep requirement of 212 dex, I guess it is. Or 217 dex, I think. Yeah. Anyway, we're using a sword instead of a bow, so we do have a nice wheel right here. Aptly located. I was using Blade Dancer for a while, but not needed. Point Blank still seems pretty good. I need natural remedies. I don't like flask times without it. So, yeah, I need it. Yeah, okay, some extra crit there. Yeah, pretty well balanced. Also, a cluster, of course. Now, I got a pretty cool cluster here, mainly for defense. Get a lot of extra movement speed and some extra damage here. Martial Prowess, just generic suffix. And then Veteran Defender, giving me a lot of extra breathing room for attribute issues, elemental resistance issues, and in the event that you have a shield like this, woo, it's a lot of extra defense. We got the Special Reserve, Spike Concoction. Special Reserve because of Berserk. With a double Precision Watcher's Eye, which was not too expensive. I can't remember what it was. Maybe 10 Divines, maybe. Kind of forgetting about that one. Yeah, I guess that drives the cost of the build up a little bit. Then, Enduring Composure. So in the event that you're doing a small cluster jewel for the cluster notable, I think it's better to use the Megalomaniac in that case, because you're already going to lose the jewel slot anyway after the medium cluster. So you should try and find the best Megalomaniac you can. This is one of the best ones I could. Vicious Guard was very good for this build, of course. I do have some alternatives. A couple of alternatives right here just so you can kind of see what I was working with. I think this was actually a really good one. And this one here. Maybe you think these are better. I don't know. But yeah, pretty solid. Pretty solid stuff. So that would be it for the passives. Let's go down. Yep. Okay, to the POB. I've opened the calculations, and you know the only thing I really care about is magic find. What is it? 60%, 273 plus Abyssco's. Not a bad start for a hybrid magic find. It will get better. These stats will go higher in fairly short order. Effective DPS here. You can see Trinity is working quite well. Obviously, it works within the realm of this kind of damage. Lightning does almost nothing sometimes, then cold has a chance to topple over it. Oh, I forgot where the conversions come from. The conversion comes from this mastery. 10% from Lightning Strike, or 50% from Lightning Strike, and then 10% from Divergent Trinity. So a total of 100% for Fizz to Element conversion. 50% light, 40% cold, and 10% random. Definitely makes Trinity work, for sure. Back to the calculations, I see 29, almost 30k physical hit is pretty solid. And, yeah, I mean, 63k effective hit pool. I'm not sure about any of the other numbers. You can kind of take a look at this in your own view, if you want, to see how it looks for you in the POB. I think it's pretty nice, pretty well balanced. It's going to look a little glassy to some people. No armor, no fizz taken as, but with 82% evasion, endurance charges, immortal call, and some block chance. I mean, that's pretty solid. Oh, and very fast moving too, with shield charge. That's pretty solid, effective defense at this point. But again, when I first started the build, I kind of fell over, pretty easily on some of the hard maps. Granted, it was 8 mod corrupted wandering path maps, so that's going to be kind of hard for anybody on like a 20 divine budget. Most builds, solo. Here's something I want to show you. Check this out. 9.2k DPS, but if you go to melee hit, we can see that, I guess. And then you can even choose like Vaal lightning strike. I don't really know how this is calculated in here. But anyway, the seems like the most appropriate damage, I guess, is the projectiles. There's 2 here because of returning projectiles. Actually, could be 3 because of anomalous, but in most cases it's 2. That's why I put that at 2. Watch what happens when I drop Innervate and Vaal Smite. Whoa! Where'd my damage go? Well, this was more indicative of my damage when I was using a normal foil, but once I used Paradoxica, it became painfully obvious. Paradoxica was a very small upgrade without Vaal Smite and all that. It was a very small upgrade. It's still good to take because it's just a cheaper item than like triple T1 physical foil. But with Vaal Smite in play, Paradoxica completely overtakes any other melee weapon that I could be using. And if I put Wrath on there, it would just be ridiculous. So, honestly, Paradoxica combined with the Vaal Smite Innervate tech, chef's kiss there. That is a lot of extra damage. And you can control it. You can use it. I love using that right before I enter the boss arena. Go down there with those buffs loaded up, blow the double Vaal lightning strike, and you just see the boss just get obliterated, at least in most cases, when I time that out right. And you got to see it pretty well in the showcase. I never used Smite, just Vaal Smite. Okay, and then we got the config as well. Fair Grace Tricorn's giving me a lot of extra stuff, of course. I mean, that's why I'm using the helmet. If I wasn't using this helmet, I mean, I guess I'd use some kind of Rarity Rage Magic Find helmet. But, yeah, seemed pretty good choice if I'm ghosting all the time anyway. We have Innervation active. Yep. We got some power charges. Yep. We got frenzy charges. Wow. Yeah. Endurance charges. Ooh, look at that effective health disappear. 1,000 rampage, not going to be up all the time, but these are kind of optimal conditions I kind of show you. Fortify, yep, effective health goes down a lot there. Alchemist Genius in play, yes, because of the cluster. No rage, lose some damage and movement speed. Shocked an enemy, yep, that's Impulsa there. Enemies blinded, thank you Paradoxica. Capped out my hit chance. Well, I mean, this is against Pinnacle Boss, though. Enemy shocked. Not usually 50, but pretty close to it. And there you go. Well, that's about it. Alright, so that is the build showcase. Kind of showed you everything that I care to show on paper. I told you about the why and the everything about the build. Again, I just wanted to reiterate, I would have liked to have been more serious about presenting this build to the community. It was just so off the cuff and untested, unverified. And of course I've tested it out now, but I was a little bit alarmed about how much I had to invest into the build to make it do what I wanted to with the strategies I wanted to. Granted, they are asking a lot from me, trying to ghost mobs, babysit ghosts in the middle of wandering path 8 mod corrupted maps is kind of a tall order for any Magic Find character, and so it's going to make this league extra challenging, of course. But if you are wanting to follow this build, by all means, I mean, I suppose I recommend it. Now that you've been educated, you're brought up to speed. I don't have much else to say on it. You can always ask questions in the description anyway. But we're going to leave it there, and yeah, I'm going to be moving on with, let's see, one last little bit of eye candy for you guys. I bought a Mage Blood. I spent a little bit of extra, even though it's only a 3-flask Mage Blood. You might have seen me and made a post about it. But here it is. By golly, they do exist. At 5% Quant Mage Blood. You're going to have a hard time, For those of you who follow me to a T and copy every single thing I do, good luck finding this one ever in League or next League or the League after, because I've had this thing on my radar for a long time and finally got it. So that feels good, man. Feels good. I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna continue practicing some Harbinger ghosting stuff. We'll be on stream tomorrow, I guess, and yeah, we'll see you there. Okay. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.